Hi everyone, my name is Mandy Berger. This is my Module 12 EDL 850 on tort liability. To start with, we were supposed to define what is tort. And according to our materials that we had for the week, our book for student law by Essick and Understanding Tort Laws video, I understood that there are two kinds of torts, intentional and negligence. To start with, intentional is when harm happens to another person due to your actions. The most common torts in intentional are battery, assault, false imprisonment, and emotional distress. And then that leaves us with negligence. This is what we see more often than not when it comes to schools. And this happens because someone does not do or exercise the degree of care needed to ensure safety, resulting in the harm of another person. Like I said, this is seen more often with students and in the school setting than intentional torts. We had to research 5 different cases that dealt with torts in the school system. My first case is NM versus the Anchorage School District. In May of 2009, a 6-year-old little boy was running to greet his mom after school. He tripped on a crack in the sidewalk on the school grounds, falling face first into a bunch of pine stumps and shrubs that have yet to be removed. They were approximately sticking out of the ground about 1 inch to 2 inches, so not hugely big, but big enough and sharp enough that a piece of the pine poked through the young boy's little eye socket and lodged right into his frontal lobe, causing permanent damage. The trial went on for a while. 4 years later, the courts finally settled and found the school district guilty of negligence and awarded the family $4.5 million in damages, plus additional money for emotional stress. It actually was the largest negligent case against a school at that time. You know, when it comes to this case, I think reactive measures that happened at my school would be the first thing it was to remove the stumps. Why? Honestly, would you cut them down that small and not just follow through and take them all the way out if you didn't want them there? I think it's also important to offer aid in the family in the way of services so that young boy still gets the education that he deserves. As far as proactive measures, you know, kind of along the same lines, go ahead and remove the stumps. If you're already cutting stuff down and cleaning up the area, why wouldn't you go a step farther and remove the stumps and all the shrubs and the, you know, just the little droppings to make it a safer place? And then lastly, make sure all the staff and stakeholders understand negligence and what all that it entails, and how if we aren't doing our duty to ensure the safety of others, what could happen. My second case is Munn versus Hotchkiss School. On a field trip to China, 15-year-old Kara Munn was bitten by a tick, and then from that she contracted encephalitis, which caused neurological brain damage, leaving her unable to speak. She was awarded over $40 million in damages. In this case, they looked at 2 things, one being the assumption of risk by her family, and the second one being the duty of the school. Although the family had to sign a waiver saying that they understood the risk, the courts did decide that the duty of the school to keep their minor students safe was greater than the risk, and therefore Munn swung. You know, as far as reactive measures, after this happened, I think that, you know, any school district has to look at, should we allow any more trips like this in the future? Can we really, when we take students into an area this, you know, on a trip like this, can we really wholeheartedly 100% ensure their safety? And then also, what kind of aid is our school offering this family in the way of services to make sure she gets the education she needs? You know, are we educating our staff to make sure she gets the education she needs? You know, what kind of technology services are out there that we can offer? And as far as proactive measures, you know, once again, make sure that all the stakeholders understand the risks involved prior to any type of activity, whether it's a field trip or, you know, a school-sponsored event. You know, there's several risks involved in no matter what we do, and we need to make sure that all our students are safe. My third case is Barrett versus the Wichita Public School System. I picked this one because I thought it was pretty important, although it is from 1998. You know, it is a case that happened in Kansas, and it deals with sports, and I am a coach, so this one was a little bit closer to me. In 1998, a 12th grader, Barrett, collapsed on the practice football field on the first day of mandatory football practice, and he died the next day. Practice went from 8:15 to 12:50. When then they continued with the circuit conditioning practice. After 2 rotations of the conditioning, which was sometime after 1 p.m., Barrett complained of not feeling well to his coach, and that coach told him just to get a drink of water and sit out, but he was never checked on. Then after practice, while leaving the field, which was approximately 5 hours later, Barrett collapsed. Barrett's family sued for a wrongful death due to negligence on the school and the coaches. You know, this is a tough case, and there's several other cases like that actually ended up which led to KSHSAA changing the rules on practice and heat requirements and what coaches have to do training-wise, which I think is huge. Reactive measures and proactive measures for this one. You know, for reactive, you know, I think if something like this happened, you've got to make sure that your coaches and your staff know what they should be doing. And it's hugely important for the safety of all the kids. You know, you got to make sure all the staff have taken their safety tests and are up to date on all their first aid training. And you can't take anything as a joke. And you need to be checking on your students when they say they don't feel good. My next case is Mitchell versus Cedar Rapids Community School District. In 2007, a 9th grade female special education student named Dee left school early, skipping her last couple hours of classes. She left with another student. They both met up with another student who later raped Dee. Her absence was recorded, but no other measures were taken to alert her family that she was gone. It was recorded and turned into the office. Dee's mother, alarmed when she received a phone call from another student saying he had Dee's backpack, went to find Dee. The rape was reported and the family sued the school for damages. Dee was awarded $500,000 in damages in this case. The court found the school was negligent in alerting Dee's family in her absence at school. Although her absence was recorded, her family wasn't even made aware that she wasn't at school, and she is a special education student who always has a para with her. Reactive measures would be first, look into a new monitoring system because the one we have is not working. Meet with all SPED staff personnel to make sure that they understand what safety measures they should be taking. If this student always has a para with her, do they not think it odd that she was in the hour before but not in the hour now? You know, steps need to be taken as far as proactive measures go. Have a new monitoring system in place, one that alerts parents right away and not 5 hours later. And, you know, I think it's also important to teach students on, you know, safety and sex and what happens for those consequences when they cross the line. And then my 5th case is the Johnson versus the School District of Midland. In 1993, Robbie, a first grader, was injured while in music class. The students had just learned for the first time the song and actions to London Bridge. The teacher picked 2 other students to be the bridge and put Robbie in the middle where he was rocked back and forth. She then turned her back on the students and began writing on the board. At this time, the other 2 boys started to get rough. Robbie asked them 3 times to stop and even yelled twice for help, but couldn't be heard over all the laughing and the music. He was then thrown up against a bookcase where he cut his head. He was awarded over $22,000 in damages due to the teacher's neglect in this situation. As far as reactive measures go, if something like this happened, you know, you need to meet and review with that teacher what her or his responsibilities are in that classroom. You know, also it's important once again to offer aid to that family in the way of services that the school has and reassure them that this will not happen again and that the teacher should be monitoring them. As far as proactive measures go, make sure all the staff understands negligence and their duty in the classroom when there are students under their care, and that they have to constantly be vigilant and they cannot turn their head, not even for a second. Lastly, professional ethics. You know, I think the biggest thing, I found this quote in one of our readings by Dragon for this week's. Schools and other agencies that supervise children are held to a high standard to protect the health, safety, and the well-being of that children. And that is true. You know, teachers were held to a higher standard, and we have to be ever vigilant and we have to be watchful. Some ways to do that is to keep in mind these tips. You know, perform your duties no matter how small, because they're all equally important. Provide thorough instruction and review them often, no matter how silly they may seem. Follow the school's discipline rules. They are there for a reason, and that reason is to keep not only the students safe, but the staff safe as well, and keep private information private. Just by following these simple tips, will go on a long ways in making sure that you are never involved in any of these type of cases. Thank you.